Keeping up with the divisions, we head to the Southeast. Welcome to AJM in the AM. I'm Anthony Mero with the hilarious episode 25. Probably the weakest division with only one true contender in the Miami Heat, one playoff dark horse that could potentially take a series or two if things go their way, the Atlanta Hawks, the perpetually dysfunctional Washington Wizards, the Hornets that got bopped by problems completely out of their control, and the Orlando Magic that are in a full rebuild with a young, exciting roster that probably would still be pretty trash this year. Keeping with the system, we're going to go from best to worst, so we start in Miami. The Miami Heat have been a powerhouse out east for a long time. They have one of the best front offices with Pat Riley at the helm, arguably the best coach in the league in Eric Spoelstra, and the roster is pretty darn good too, right? You have a good veteran point guard in Kyle Lowry, you have a nice flyer contract on Victor Oladipo, who despite all those horrific injuries to his quads and his knees, looked pretty darn good in the playoffs, especially defensively. You have Jimmy Butler, a guy who on any given night can play up to par with the league's top 5 players. Or he could play well below par and look like an awkward role player that still plays fantastic defense. You have two Brett Young studs in Bam Adebayo, who's arguably one of the best and most versatile defenders in the league, and Tyler Hero, a really good scorer coming off of a dominant 6 Man of the Year award season with young role guys like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus. But they didn't get better this offseason as a team. You lose PJ Tucker, which is a hit, and adding Nikola Jovic in the draft isn't exactly a needle-moving win-now move. Unless they get some big improvements from Bam and Hero, I think the Heat, while still being hyper-competitive and amongst the top 5 teams in the East, may be falling back a little bit. This offseason, they kept swinging and missing on every big-name disgruntled star, which stagnated their signing and trade potential. I know we have this really strong belief that the Heat front office is going to make this massive trade, but they haven't done that in forever. The Heat are obviously very well run, but guess who their last big mid-contract trade was? If you're thinking Jimmy Butler, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James, those were all sign-in trades where they were free agents wanting to go to Miami, so you would be wrong. Their last big mid-contract trade? Shaquille O'Neal for the 04-05 season. Their trade chips just aren't good enough right now without moving Bam, which to me just isn't worth it. No one is going to trade Donovan Mitchell or Kevin Durant for any combination of Duncan Robinson, who has a horrible contract. Dude just got inked to 5 years, $90 million, and was benched in the playoffs. Tyler Hero, Omar Yurtseven, and Max Strus, and any combination of more than likely late first-round picks. They have 3 of them. It's just not enough. This isn't Pawn Stars. Other teams are capable and willing to give better offers, so internal improvements are the only way I see the Heat getting better at all, which is very possible. They just went to 7 games against the Celtics in the conference finals, and that was without Hero, who was dealing with injuries. The problem they ran into was shot creation and scoring, and Hero is a pure scorer. He just averaged 20 points per game in the regular season on solid shooting splits of 44.7 from the field, almost 40 from 3, and almost 87 from the free throw line. His defense does leave something to be desired, but with Bam on the help and Butler in the passing lanes, he has a lot of support off the ball. Bam's improvement is just being more aggressive. He has scoring talent to go along with his defense. He's a super athlete, but it's super frustrating watching him go into a move and then pull up a weak floater over defenders. He has the ability to get under the basket or hit a nice little mid-range jumper. Injuries are the crux of the Heat though. Media was harping on LeBron James being less durable in his twilight, and it's very true. He only played 56 games this past year. But Jimmy Butler has been in that category for years now. Since the 2017-2018 season, Butler has played more than 60 games just once, playing in just 57 games this last season with nagging issues, especially that knee inflammation problem he was dealing with in the playoffs. And while I mentioned he's very capable of going bonkers with these crazy scoring outbursts in the playoffs, he can also be hampered by his health and not be that kind of a factor. This past postseason, Butler had 4 crazy 40-point nights, and the Heat were 3-1 in those games. He had 4 30-point nights, and the Heat were 2-2 in those nights. And he had 5 games with 20 points or less, 3 of which were 13 points and under, and the Heat were 2-3 in those. So his impact is felt when he balls out, but those issues and inconsistencies can be a negative factor too. Hero and Bam also tend to have some kind of nagging issue in the playoffs ever since their bubble run. With Hero having a strained groin last year, he couldn't even play in Game 7, and Bam having shoulder and elbow and even hand issues that hold him back. Even with all of those negatives though, the Heat are still a very good team with talent across the board. They're a well-oiled machine under Spo, with even low-end role players playing as big factors in their system. They're going to be in that 50-win range. I think a high of 55-27 with a low of 48-34 if injury luck doesn't go their way. I think low 50s pushing 51-31 this year feels about right. Now that was long, and these episodes will be longer than my usual ones, so I'll upload only once a week during this stretch of division content. But if you like this content, please hit that subscribe button to join the Ant Colony and like the video to really help us out in that algorithm. The Atlanta Hawks this offseason were the opposite of the Heat. They did not stand pat. They were wheeling and dealing and found a gem with the Spurs' DeJounte Murray. Murray was just an all-star, almost averaged a triple-double, is a very good defender, and offers some secondary playmaking, allowing Trae to play off the ball. There's something to be desired by Murray's shooting, but he's still an amazing athlete and a very good playmaker, which has been a weakness for the Hawks, especially this postseason. Trae gets bottled up on ball a lot and is forced to make tough decisions as a severely undersized point guard. We saw it against the Heat. He couldn't get going as their primary ball handler going against the Heat's aggressive defensive style. The Hawks already have a ton of young talent that seem to be trending in the right direction and getting better. Guys like DeAndre Hunter and John Collins. We just saw Hunter really explode onto the scene in that Miami series, where Trae was struggling, shooting below 32% from the field and just 18% from three. Hunter found opportunity and became the scorer that Atlanta desperately needed. This new iteration of the Hawks should be able to build on what we saw in the 2021 season with another year of internal growth. Atlanta could be a sneaky dark horse playoff team. They have the ability to go nuclear, and that could be enough to sneak a series away from one of those top 5 teams, similar to the Raptors. I see their floor at about 45-37 and their ceiling tipping 52-30, but I'll peg them at 49-33, which should be good enough to be a 6th or 7th seed in a competitive Eastern Conference. Moving on to Charlotte, the Hornets were the 3rd best team last season in this division. They tied Atlanta for the 2nd best record with a record of 43-39. But the Hornets had a really bad and unfortunate offseason through no fault of their own. They had a decent draft with Mark Williams and Bryce McGowens. They retained Cody Martin, but Montrezl Harrell is gone, and it doesn't seem like he's going to return to the NBA after being hit with a felony drug charge. Plus, the horrific situation with Miles Bridges really burned his opportunity within the NBA. So their promising duo of Airbnb, Ball, and Bridges has been broken up. And I'm sure if his domestic violence situation didn't happen, he would still be with the team. You can't blame the franchise or any other for wanting to wash their hands of that problem. But now the Hornets have a lot of questions going forward. There's still some talent here. You have Ball, Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre, Terry Rozier, and PJ Washington. But even with Miles Bridges attached, they weren't good enough to win a play-in game. Now their leading scorer in Bridges and their 6th leading scorer in Harrell are off the team. That's 31 points and 12 boards a game just missing. It has to be filled somewhere, so playing their new rookies and young guys could be the move, but that sounds like a speed rebuild as opposed to what we should have expected this season, which was another strong play-in run. This is a disappointing situation overall, but the Hornets have been able to steer clear of the mess Harrell and Miles created, so there's hope that the front office led by GM Mitch Kupchak will be able to rebuild quickly, especially with a cornerstone like LaMelo. I see a floor of this team being around 30-52 with a ceiling of sub 500, 39-43. I'll have them pegged as a 33-win team right now as currently constructed. The Wizards were another busy team this offseason. First, they signed Bradley Beal to a supermax to make him a Washington lifer, but that will only hamstring their future cap flexibility. Even so, it's a good move. Retaining a star caliber player is important, especially for a place that never seems to land any in free agency. They traded KCP for Monte Morris and Will Barton from Denver. That's some nice, decent depth additions. You add Johnny Davis in the draft, so they're continuing to rebuild while adding decent wing talent. It should make them at least a little bit better than they were last season. With the roster they currently have, I could see some playmaking being a problem, even though they do have some mid-quality playmakers in Morris, Barton, and even Beal flashed some really good passing ability last season with a career-high 6.6 assists. If it becomes too big of a problem, I can see them trying to reach out on a trade or the free agent market to find a true playmaker. Maybe Isaiah Thomas makes a return. The Wiz do have some interesting prospects still with Kyle Kuzma, Rui Hachimura, and Kristaps Porzingis, but it's not enough to crack the upper echelon, although they make for an interesting bet as a low-end play-in team. I can see the Wizards being a low 40s win team. Their ceiling, if Kristaps can stay healthy and everyone clicks, can be something like 42 and 40. If health continues to be an issue for some of these guys, and the playmaking aspect that I mentioned a second ago destroys continuity and minimizes their talent impact, this can be a 28 win team. I'll settle on the side of optimism because there is some talent here at around 38 and 44. And finally, the Orlando Magic. This is a rebuild. I don't expect them to be good at all, but they will be better, which isn't saying much for a team that just went 22 and 60. They retain their young guys in Mo Bamba and Bol Bol. You bring back Gary Harris, and their number 1 pick was spent on Paolo Banchero. And Paolo looks amazing already. He dominated in the Summer League and played to his NBA-ready draft tags. With Banchero, Cole Anthony, Franz Wagner, and potentially another swing with a healthier season, plus an offseason of work in Jalen Suggs, that's a solid 4-piece of talent aged 22 and under. They will be exciting, but being so young, I don't expect them to win many games. Their absolute ceiling is 30 and 52 with a floor of 25 and 57. This is a roster full of kids aged 25 and under, so expectations should be low for now. I see this team being an exciting 27 and 55. Going forward, most divisions are going to be better. I do believe the Southeast is the worst division in basketball, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Where do you see these teams? Are any of these teams your favorite? And add any details that would make them either better or worse. Maybe tag on to something that I said and understated or something that I may have missed. Thank you as always for watching. I appreciate it every time, and I'll see you on Monday.